Good evening. Tonight we have a little bit of a different video. As you can see, we have the Ukraine here on a interactive map, and it is a battlefield map, so to speak. And I would like to say a couple things up front before we get started. This video is an analysis of what is going on the battlefield. It is not a propaganda for the Ukraine, neither is it a propaganda video for the Russians. I'm not going to show you any blown up tanks and a hip hip hooray because one side destroyed that tank and the other one destroyed the other drone or any of that stuff. The internet is littered with this stuff. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all of these places, have that. We want to take a look at what the two sides are actually doing on the battlefield from a command perspective. And the first thing is you can see here, this is the Donbas region down here. Let me see this if I can point this out. The Donbas region is down here. And here we have Mariupol in the middle here. Here's Crimea, and here's Odessa, Transnistria. I hope I pronounced this correctly. And Kharkiv is up here. The first battles which started today, this, by the way, is a map some people in the Ukraine put together on the website. And the link for this is deepstatemap.life. So you can go there yourself and see this. If you can get it, it's available in Ukrainian or in English. And what we're seeing here now is, let me see, we want to go to Kharkiv. Let me see, where did Kharkiv go now? If I don't pronounce the names correctly, then I would like to apologize for it. Here's Kharkiv. So you can see now here, what happened is the Ukrainian army has cleared this area out. This is still contested area. This is where the Russians are. And this is the actual border to Russia between the Ukraine and Russia here. And they're trying to clear this whole area out, and they seem to be having quite a success because all of this area here was, until about last week, pretty much dominated by the Russians. So we have seen a massive offensive here in this region here to clear out the Russians. Kharkiv, from what I understand, is pretty much cleared out. And that seems to be the good news on the side for the Ukrainians at the moment. But we can see here that this entire region here, this is basically the northeast of the Ukraine to the Russian border here. This is all Russia, is still pretty much occupied by the Russians. And we go further here. This is the Luhansk region here, the Donbas region. And down here is Mariupol. And that's right here, Kherson and all of those areas here. This is Mariupol, where the Azov battalion is in that steel mill engaged. And there's just no way anyone can come down there to their rescue at the moment. This is too far gone. But the real question is, what is the Russian military actually trying to do? Now, yesterday and last week, I shared with you that the Austrian military academy had, posted a update on the area around Izum, which is right here. Let's see, I hope you can follow this, you don't get dizzy. This here is Izum right here. And this here, if you may remember what I had shared with you, was that the Ukrainian army had basically closed off here, the road here. There were forces down here on that flank, and there was another battalion stationed here, right here, at this town here, which is, Kamianka. And I had shared with you that the Russians couldn't come down this road here, just straight through. And they were basically locked up here at Izum. This was all non-Russian, that was Ukrainian controlled, basically. And what the Russians did is they moved to this forest area here to the west of Izum, and they broke through here with the two pontoon bridges right here on the river, here and here. And this is where you saw now the pictures which had been published on the internet, where the two pontoons were blown up and the tanks were laying there in the river. And now what happened is the Russians sent reinforcement through it, and they had gotten, until last week when I did the update, they had gotten right around here to this bank, and that's where they started out from. They were able to resupply it through here, and they started to fight this flank of the Ukrainians, and then they went back and they took out this brigade, or the battalion here, and the battalion here. Could be smaller, could be just have company size, whatever the Ukrainians had there. So this is now, and this morning on the 15th, this is now local time at 11:14 a.m. local time. You could see the Russian army was still here, and by 4:20 p.m. they had moved through here. So they have now Izum, and they have both of these roads here, which are critical. This road here, which is MO3, Motorway 3, I guess, and then this all the way over to this town here. Now you can see is the closeness to the Russian border will allow the Russians, to move supplies through to this here. In this area around here, this is where the Ukrainian army has approximately 48 battalions. Kramatorsk. And they are basically entrenched in 3-layer stacks in this entire region here. And I'm not quite sure if these are just straight lines, the way they did this, or if this is a circular defense. But we can see now what's going to happen is the Russian army has approximately 96 battalions in this area, where you have 48 battalions here of the Ukrainian army. And the strategy right now is the Russians are advancing, and they seem to be having the upper hand in the battlefield on that northern flank. And you can see this. They're starting to break into this direction. They're coming from this side, from here, and here towards Slovlansk. And that's what they're going to do. And then they're going to have the forces from the south moving up here. From this point here to this point here is approximately 83 kilometers, or right around 50 miles. So this is not a very large distance to travel. A T-72 tank, if they go over the road, can travel that distance without fire, of course, anything, in about 2 hours easily. And then you can see here is they're setting here already up the next move, the next in circulation, which is then going to meet up with these forces from down here out of the back area behind Mariupol, which is back here. So this is going to be one pincer movement after another. This one is going to meet up with this. This one is going to meet up with these forces, and they're going to circulate everything what is in here. And that will cut off 48 battalions here of the Ukrainian armies. And they will have virtually, they're going to be in the same position as where the Azov battalion is in the steel mill. They're now entrenched, and with the rocket grenade launchers they used to call them Katushkas, Those were the Stalin organs, the newer version of those basically. They're gonna trying to obliterate all the manpower they have in the trenches, the Ukrainians have in the trenches. And once this circle here is closed between Izum here, or Izum here and here, and these movements, and they move in here, they're gonna take 48 battalions out. That is at least 4,800 men, which are gonna be either dead, wounded, or POW in the end. And that's gonna be a big blow. And then you get, this is basically on how they're gonna move east. They're gonna do one pincer movement after another, pincer movement. And when that is taken care of, then they have that whole region here basically then closed off. And then the next move is going to come from here. That I'm pretty certain is going to come out of Transnistria, where there is 2 battalions placed in here. Let me just see. I had that a little bit earlier. Transnistria. There is some Russian battalions here. I think there's 2 battalions here. And they will come from moving east, and they're gonna have the troops here, which are stationed here at this point, from, this is Mariupol, and this is down here is Kherson. Out of the Kherson region, when they don't need that corridor, that green corridor which is in here, they're gonna come around and they're gonna encirculate Odessa. And that's going to cut Odessa off, and that will get the whole southern or western flank here set up for the stage. Then they're going to clear up the port, and they can move then troops in even more easily through this region here, basically all the way up here. And then this is all going to be closed off. And then the question is what they're going to do next. And I think from that point on, they're going to move themselves forwards and forwards and forwards. And then eventually, they're going to reach Kiev at one point, which is right here. And then we will see another battle. And that is when they're going to have the troops which are stationed here and along here are not even in the map yet right now. The Ukrainians haven't put them in. But there are several battalions stationed alongside here, Russian and Belarus, and in Russia here. And they're going to close on the flank, and they're going to come in piece by piece, and that's going to go over and over and over until they get to wherever they want to go or how far they want to take it. This is right now the overall strategy. We're talking months here because the movements are not very large. If we go back to Izum, this was just about 9 days ago. And I have to do this now with my fingers. We can put on a ruler, and we can say as they were here, and now they're here. This is 22 kilometers, probably, I would say 11 miles. Let's see, how much is 22 kilometers? Can I type it in? Oops, that's 33. 22 kilometers, 13 miles. So they traveled 13 miles in 1 week. That's what that took. And they went first from here over the river, this Donetsk, Dnepr, or whatever they call that little creek there. And then they established their base here. That got blown up. But by that time, they were already with most of the battalions over here. And that was enough to defeat the Ukrainians, the Ukrainian army in this whole region here. And as you saw just today, they were able to move that many miles. So they moved from here as a starting point. Oops, let me do this again. From here. It doesn't want to. We moved from here to about here. That is 13 kilometers. That's about how much they actually did move, 13 kilometers, 8 miles. So they were able to advance 8 miles today between 11:14 a.m. when that was reported. That is now Ukraine time, local time, on the 15th. What is today? Yeah, 15th today, Sunday. And by 4:20 p.m., they had moved those 8 miles through, which means there was not a lot of resistance. And this is right now why the Austrian military academy had pointed or focused on Izium in their last front report or battlefield report, because this is going to be strategically the most important area for the Russians, because it is the closest one to the Russian border where they can come straight through with supplies. And that's what's going to fuel this entire thing here. And I do not know, because I don't have the intelligence from the Ukrainian side, of what the Ukrainian High Command is going to do to protect these 48 battalions from being encircled. Because once the encirclement is completed, it's going to be very, very difficult to get to these people and to get any supplies in there. And this is going to be the same strategy what they had done down here in Mariupol with the steel mill, basically, which is encapsulated or encircled at this point. At this point, basically, everything is encircled here. And there's just no way. And this is going to happen in Izium. Here we have only 1 battalion. And here we're looking at 48 battalions. If the intelligence the Austrians had, which I'm almost sure that they did, is going to be a pretty significant loss to the Ukrainian army if they should lose it. So if I was a Ukrainian commando, this would be my main focus point, was to protect and throw this flank back and keeping that back. I do not know on how many battalions they can actually move in there and how much heavy equipment they can move in that area. The other thing is I would focus on very, very swiftly is to cut all the supply lines back here in this area to Russia for the Russian army, so they cannot get resupplied. To break into this area, you would have to start an offensive basically through here, and this is going to be very difficult because the terrain in itself with the lake up here is going to be in that big river here, that water bed here is going to be very, very difficult to maneuver through with any type of heavy equipment which you will need in order to get this back in here. If Kharkiv, if they're going to think that they're going to do this through Kharkiv to roll this up here and come down here, this is probably going to create heavy losses. But that is the part, I just don't have enough intel on it. I do not know on how reinforced the rear end of this front line is by the Russians. But the proximity to the Russian homeland is so close, that they can resupply things very, very quickly. On a side here, they can move freely without being attacked, or reasonably certainty that they cannot be attacked. So they can just simply move stuff up here and then come back over here or from here. So they have tactical advantages there, which the Ukrainians don't have at the moment. Normally, you would utilize Air Force air support to disrupt everything over here, or you have to use some form of missiles, short-range missiles, medium-range missiles, to basically destroy all of this infrastructure back here, so none of the supplies can easily move. That means railroad, streets, anything what can be reasonably drivable, for vehicles to be on. That would be something else to be considered. But the big danger here is the loss. And this is the strategy, exact same strategy with the encirclement tactic. What you have here, what the Red Army did with the Wehrmacht. And they followed this concept basically here from Stalingrad and from, a little bit north of here in Russia where the Wehrmacht was. And they pushed the Wehrmacht all the way back to Berlin, where they completely destroyed the Wehrmacht and the surrender happened. And they did this over a 2-year span, and it took a lot of material and men, but they did it. And they did it exactly with this tactic, and that threw the Wehrmacht completely off because they had no clue on how to deal with the encirclements. And once you have an encirclement reasonably established, it is easy to be reinforced, especially if you're that close to your home base. Whereas these people here, which are also close to the home base, but basically all the infrastructure back here is already destroyed in terms of refineries, gasoline depots, ammunition depots, railroad junctions and stuff like this. All of this is pretty much out at this point. Back here, the Russians took all of this out. It's going to be very, very difficult to resupply these forces here. They got an easy going because they got this all secured. And that is pretty much, you would have to have heavy, like I said, missile or air attacks to disrupt the entire supply for these 96 battalions they have here. 96 to 48. So the Russian High Command figures with a 2-to-1 advantage, they can actually accomplish their goal. And at this point, with the advances they have made around here in Kiev and in Izium today, that is important, in the last week and a half. This is going to be their staging point. And like I said, you're going to have these forces here. They're going to be reinforced, and they're going to meet up here. They're going to fall in, and this entire area is going to be encircled. And then those 48 battalions, basically you have to write them off. The only other option, if they cannot get enough equipment or supplies in, they would have to basically withdraw these 48 battalions to save them to a safer destination back here, and then regroup them, let the Russians take this, and then when there's more equipment coming in, basically launch a counterattack from the north here, from, Kharkiv, to the north. If they can break through this area here, which I doubt is going to be difficult because they're going to come under attack from the Russian side, from the Russian homeland, unless they actually venture into Russia and come back around through Russia into this and fall into this from the backside. This is going to be a very, very demanding military operation. If I understood the Ukrainian fellow correctly, then Zelensky finally issued a mandatory draft, where they're trying to get an army together of 1 million men. That is not very easily accomplished, or it can be, but the boot camp, looking at the speed of what that has to be accomplished at, you're probably looking 2-week boot time, boot camp, 2 weeks of boot camp, and probably 2 weeks to 4 weeks of special training. And then these people have to get into combat. You do not want to lose these 48 battalions here under any circumstances, because these are one of your most experienced, whoever's still alive at this point, and not wounded, is going to be your most experienced military personnel, manpower. And you want to keep them as much as you can. And it is not about the territory. But if you lose this, even if you get an army together of 1 million men, the experience these men have here in these 48 battalions cannot be easily replaced, even with numbers. So at one point or another, they have to think about this, on how they're going to come in with what weapons. The other thing is, what I don't have intel on is exactly of what the Ukrainian army actually has now and what they don't have in terms of foreign tanks, artillery like howitzers and stuff like this. You need literally howitzers in the hundreds of thousands of range, almost 1,000 of them, looking at 96 battalion and the size of territory. And you probably will need about the better part of 1,000 to 3,000 tanks because this is going to be more open terrain here east of the river here. And these parts here, this is from a territory pretty demanding even for tank warfare, because these are not really wide open plains, but rather little spots of land and this, that, and the other thing. So this is not going to be that easy, but you will need a good amount of tanks in this. There's no question about it. And artillery, long-range artillery fire to basically wear down these forces here. And you have to protect these 48 battalions. If they do the same mistake, the Ukrainian army, what they did in Mariupol with the Azov battalion, that they left them there, and they didn't send any re-support in to get them out of there. If they're going to repeat this, these 48 battalions here are going to be lost. Probably half of them are going to get killed. A third of them out of that then is going to be wounded, and they're going to go into POW state, wounded probably and alive. And then that's it. Then you got rid of your soldiers. And then that is going to be a big blow to the Ukrainian army. So if I was in command or a commander in there, with the intel I have at the moment, I would focus a lot on this area here and then see what to do with the 48 battalions. And then see if this is worthwhile to actually hold this area here, or to just retreat to safer grounds, to regroup, restructure, and then reevaluate of what we actually got there, and then see what is going to be available at that point in terms of foreign weapons. And that was our battlefield update here for today, for this week. And if something more dramatic is happening, I will post another video. Otherwise, we're probably going to have the next update next weekend. And we're going to do this now by map format, so that it's a little bit more interesting for you to see this, where this is actually at, and where these battlefield lines, the front lines, move and forwards or backwards, in what direction, and who's got the upper hand at the moment. And with that, you have a great night.